So, chapter 6, verse 41 and 42. Having attained to the world of the righteous, and dwelt there for very many years, the man who has fallen away from yoga is again both in the house of such as are pure and prosperous. Or he may be born in the family of yogins who are endowed with wisdom. For such a birth as this is more difficult to obtain in the world. Sri Krishna gives us the new word yoga bhrashta, a person who has fallen away from the path of yoga and has not reached the state of obtaining siddhis or spiritual powers. In verse 41, the world of the righteous means Sarvag, heaven. Shashvati Sama means for many, very many years. Shashva means eternity, time immemorial, for endless time, or for a very, very long time. But Sri Krishna here is not using Shashva in its literal meaning, but he's using it to mean for very many years. We use the word Tiraswag because heaven is not a geographical place where you stay. A yoga bhrashta who has performed good karmas and good deeds passes away and then attains to the world above and enjoys the fruits of this world for many years. And after that he is born in the house of people who are pure and prosperous. Sri Krishna has used the adjective shushchanam, pure and prosperous, in front of the word Srimatma, house, to show that such a person is born in a house of those who are pure and prosperous. Therefore, the first consequence for persons doing good can therefore continue these good deeds. Going to heaven is not the first consequence of good deeds. A person does not use up his karmas there. God had said that a person who does satkarma, good deeds, goes to heaven, uses those satkarmas, and then he falls back into the world of life and death. Kishan punya matyaya koma vishanti. This is different from that. A person who does good for the welfare of society goes to the world above, but that person does not use up his satkarma in the world above. After staying in that world, he is born in a house of those who are pure and prosperous. Why is there a difference between the two? The reason why there is a difference between the cause of the person who has performed the karma, and the reason for that is the cause of the person who has performed the karma. If someone performs satkarma or good deeds so that he can attain to heaven, then he will actually attain heaven. And when he enjoys the fruits in heaven, then he will use up his satkarma. His satkarma and punya, the opposite of sin, will run out, and then he will go back once again to the world of life and death. But the word kalyan is used here, and it means a person who performs good karmas for the welfare of all and without a desire for the fruit of action. His satkarma is not part of bargaining or a deal. His satkarma are for a supreme being. Such a person does not perform satkarma so that he can get objects, people, happiness or facilities in this world. Therefore, such a person does not get to enjoy happiness as a result of his satkarma and goes to the world above where other people that have that satkarma also go. But because his cause was not to enjoy happiness, his satkarma did not get all used up. So Guruji gives a simple example. When he was talking about Kishya Punya Matyokalam Vishanti, once one uses up one satkarma, then one falls back into the world of life and death. He explains this in a discourse. Let us say that there is a person living in the middle world and he is getting a salary. Every month he says 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees, and when the year finishes, he has gathered around 10,000 rupees or 12,000 rupees. He takes that, he takes his money and his family on a vacation using that money at the local hill station. He says with his family at the hill station for 8 to 10 days, he has not gone to the hill station to earn money, but he uses up all the money that he's earned, and and him and his family have stayed in a very nice hotel. They've had some nice rest, a bit of R&R. They've eaten some great food. They've travelled around. And as soon as his money runs out, he tells his children that they have to go back. Then he has to go back to his 9-to-5 job. Kishan punya matyolam vishanti. Once one uses up the satkarma, then one falls back into the world of life and good. So just like this gentleman that's gone on his holidays. So he has to balance the holidays and work. A person who does satkarma for his own pleasures uses up this satkarma when he enjoys those pleasures. But related to what is said in this verse, let us say there is a temple of God at the hill station, and we go there for the cause of doing a yatra, a pilgrimage. In this case, we are not going to the hill station to relax and enjoy ourselves, but for a very pure cause of doing a yatra. We will enjoy the same pleasures as a person in the first example did. For example, we would see the beauty of the nature at the hill station, we'll see all the flowers, we'll smell the flowers, we'll eat at a place in the hill station where there's always nice food. But the person in the first example comes back having used up his punya, whereas we will come back from the yatra with further punya. In the same way, Yoga Bhrashta goes to the same world above as the people who do the satkarma for their fruits. However, the Yoga Bhrashta has not performed these satkarmas for their fruits, nor does he go to heaven. And therefore, despite staying in heaven, a Yoga Bhrashta satkarma does not run out. That is why after staying in heaven for a long time, such a person is born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous. The person who has used up his punya starts again from zero, in the same way that the person who used up his 12,000 rupees, or how much of a cash he had, on holidays, he has to start again from zero by going back to his work. And if he wishes to come back next year to hill station, he has to basically work those same hours. On the other hand, a yogbhrashta, a person who has fallen away from the path of yoga, comes back with the same balance. And because he comes back with the same balance, he starts with a high pedestal. He is born in the house of those who are Srimant, prosperous. If you study the Gita, then it feels that we have been born in a Srimant Parivar, a prosperous family. Srimant does not mean neo-rich or winning the jackpot so you can live in a mansion. This is not what it means at all. The word Shuchanam, pure, is used before Srimatnam, prosperous house, to show that such person is born in the house of those who are pure, cultured, and prosperous. The people of this house are such that money has not come to ruin them. They have seen wealth in the form of Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. Such a person is born in a family like this. I say that everyone is born in Srimatan Parivar, a prosperous family, because Shri is a relative term for Lakshmi. As soon as we hear the phrase, somebody born in a Srimatan Parivar, a prosperous family, then we turn our attention on the people next door and say that the woman living there is from Srimatan Parivar, and we are nothing. We only have 500 foot square, and they have 1,500 foot square properties. This is the barometer for Srimatan that people have used. But Guruji says that is not the way to look at this. We are all Srimatan. What does wealth actually mean? Marx defined wealth very simply and straightforwardly. When can you call someone wealthy? When one has more of something than he needs, then one is wealthy. This is a very simple definition of wealth that Marx has given in the context of communism. Guruji gives a very simple example. Imagine one person earns 50,000 rupees a month, and his monthly expenditure is also 50,000 rupees. Another person earns only 10,000 rupees a month, that his monthly expenditure is only 7,000 rupees. Which of the two is wealthier? The person who's earning 50,000 rupees a month, or someone who is earning 10,000 rupees a month? The world says that the first person earns 50,000 a month is going to be a lot wealthier. And this is true. But his expenditure is exactly the same amount that he's earning. The second person only earns 10,000 rupees a month, which is a lot lesser than the bloke who's earning 50,000, but his expenditure is less than the second, is less than obviously his income. The first person has nothing at the end of the month, and the second person has amounts of money at the end of the month, which is his wealth. The second person saves 3,000 rupees every month, and therefore a person earning 10,000 rupees a month in this example is going to be a lot wealthier than the person earning 50,000 rupees a month. The reason for this is that he has more money than he needs. Now, if we apply this definition to ourselves, then firstly, how much necessities do we have? And secondly, how much do we have? What are the needs of human beings? 2 pairs of clothes, 2 meals a day. They're the basic necessities, right? Now, everything that we have after that are all luxuries. Therefore, eating twice a day is our necessity. But have we got enough space in our stomachs to eat 3 or 4 times a day? We probably do. Now, not just today, but for our whole lives, such are the facilities that God has made for us. Therefore, are we not Shimatran prosperous? Just look at other people. There are hundreds of thousands of poor people in this world who cannot even eat twice a day. If they get 1 chapati for lunch, then they have a question in their minds of whether they'll get something to eat for dinner or not. Are we not prosperous? We are. We have a need for 2 pairs of clothes, but we may need some more clothes to go out for outside events. Fine, we keep 2 more pairs of clothes. Maybe 4 pairs are enough. From these 4 pairs, you have 2 pairs to wear every day and 2 pairs for special occasions and events, such as, prom nights or going on special dates. If your 2 regular pairs get torn, then you've got 2 pairs extra for those special occasions. You do not need more than 4 pairs of clothes. Any pairs of clothes in addition to this just become a massive pile. They have been crammed in the wardrobe. All of this is our wealth. Are we not prosperous? We are. It depends on the perspective from which we look at. And from this, as Guruji explains, we are all prosperous. God has given us such birth, firstly because God has an expectation towards us. That is why we have given such a birth. The second reason for this is that we have done satkarma, good deeds, in our previous births, and therefore God has given us this wealth. We may even be yogarasht, people who have fallen from the path of yoga. That is why God has put us there. Guruji says that he has a lot of admiration for Bible and Christianity, but he has never understood Christ's quote that it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. These are the words that are exactly written in the Bible. The reason for this is that when the Bible was being written, the time was such that only if someone does something wrong do they get money. And to a certain extent, this is what happens in today's world. That is why at that time Christ said that a person who has gathered all the wealth must have done something wrong in order to get it. And at that time, the businessmen, the majority of whom were Jews, were seen to be like that. A lot of things, wrong things, were going on in society. For example, money being obtained through violence and exploitation. A lot of this was going on. Therefore, perhaps Christ may have had this to say according to the circumstances at the time. Indian culture, Vedanta, and Sri Krishna's message in the Gita does not agree with this. Sri Krishna says that if we are wealthy, then God has given us this wealth to us because he has feelings towards us, and that we must have done punya and satkarma in order to get wealth in this life. Sri Krishna says later in the Gita that when a person was at the state of yoga bhrashta, and then after spending a long time in heaven, he was reborn in a house of those who are pure and prosperous. Then this is the person tried to advance himself on the path of yoga or just stay there where he was. God has given the guarantee that this person will not fall down. Then did such a person use the wealth that God has given him in order to make efforts to go closer towards God? Or did that person sit on top of the wealth like a snake? What did the person do? God has a lot of expectations towards us. That is why he makes people that are yogarasht, reborn in the house of those who are pure and prosperous. If God has given you wealth, then become cultured not just so that you can go ahead on the path towards the Supreme Being, but so that the children that are born in our families can also do so. Remember that the children born in our families are because they are yoga-brushed souls, and that is why they had a ride into our families. If God has given us wealth, then if we are going on the path of Satgama, then we ourselves are good. But at the same time, our responsibility towards our children increases because they have come as yoga-brushed souls in our families. Looking after them, looking after all the children that are born in our families and guiding them on the path of yoga from a young age becomes our responsibility. And it's a very important responsibility. If the seed is given to us and we keep it in a treasury, then the seed will not grow. This seed needs to be given the right environment in which to grow. If you give the right environment as soon as possible, then we will have become a very big help in the development of this individual soul. And when they develop, we will develop as well. Therefore, this verse is reassuring, inspiring, and at the same time reminds us of our very responsibilities on this earth. Look after the children that are born in your houses because a yoga-brushed soul has come into your house. A yoga-brushed may become born in a house of those who are pure and prosperous, or in a family of yogins who are endowed with wisdom. What type of yogin? Just like Sri Krishna used the word Shuchi, pure, in front of the word Srimant in verse 41, Sri Krishna used the word Dhimatam, endowed with wisdom, in front of the word Yogin in verse 42. A yogin can also be a hatha yogin, but in the 42nd verse, Sri Krishna's words uses the words Dhimatam in front of yogin to mean an intelligent yogin, endowed with wisdom. All these yogins we may see be yogins, and when we are not denying that they are, there is a person that Sri Guruji has seen that he calls Khare Pal Baba. What does he do? He has remained standing up for 15 years. This is Hatha Yoga. Of course, you and I cannot do this because we do not feel that something like this is worth doing. What kind of path is it that you have just remained standing up for 15 years and have done nothing else? 15 years standing up, submitting to God. So, this is what is called Hatha Yoga. Now, he is a yogin, and we're not denying this. But he cannot be called a Dhimatan yogin, yogin endowed with wisdom. He cannot be called an intellectual yogin. Who is a yogin endowed with wisdom? Yuj means to join, and therefore one who makes efforts to join with God is an intellectual yogin. Such a yoga-brushed is born in the house of this type of yogin. The yoga-brushed is either born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous, or in a family of yogins who are endowed with wisdom. Sri Krishna says in the 42nd verse that a birth in a family of yogins who are endowed with wisdom is durlabh, difficult to obtain in this world. It is really very difficult in the material world. And Sri Krishna has used the word tara, more, after durlabh, which is difficult. Thinkers have given two different interpretations of durlabh tara. The first is that it is more difficult to become born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous, or in a family of yogas endowed with wisdom, than it is to be born as a common human being. It is very difficult to be born as a human being. Jantu nam narajma dhulabha tara. An individual soul has to go through 8,400,000 lives in order to attain a human body. This is dhulabh, or very difficult. Dhulabh tara is a comparative degree. For example, you have good, better, and best. In the same way, you have dhulabh, dhulabh tara, and dhulabh tama. In the 42nd verse, Sri Krishna says, dhulabh tara. What therefore do you have to compare this to? The comparison is that it is more difficult to become born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous, or in a family of yogas endowed with wisdom, than it is to be born as a common human being. This is the first interpretation of dhulabh tara given by a number of thinkers. The second interpretation, which Guruji himself likes very much, is that Sri Krishna is comparing the people described in the 41st and 42nd verses. In the 41st verse, Sri Krishna said that a yoga is born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous. And in the 42nd verse, Sri Krishna says that a yoga is born in a family of yogins endowed with wisdom. If a comparison were to be made between the two, it is dulatara, incredibly difficult, to obtain a birth in a family of yogins endowed with wisdom than it is to be born in the house of those who are pure and prosperous. There are many prosperous people. If you make a list of prosperous people in the world and a list of yogins who are endowed with wisdom, then the list of those who are prosperous will be very, very large, whereas the list of yogins will be incredibly small. That is why it is durlabhara, more difficult to obtain a birth in a family of yogins endowed with wisdom than it is to obtain birth in the house of those who are pure and prosperous. This is the comparison that Sri Krishna is making. It is durlabhara, to attain a birth in a family of yogins endowed with wisdom. The next verse describes what happens when yogas obtain such a birth. And that's when we get to verse